Hi guys, David here from Almost Daily Science. So today I ran into an article about a guy who finished his PhD in physics at age 89. And it got me thinking about my own dreams and aspirations, as well as conversations that I've had with people throughout my life about regrets, aspirations, and then the reality of just having to make ends meet versus doing something that you feel like you'd be really interested in. The article says that at 89 years old, Manfred Steiner is finally what he always wanted to be, a physicist. And so just recently, September 15th, 2021, he defended his PhD dissertation, Corrections to the Geometrical Interpretation of Bosonization, in Brown University's Department of Physics. He says, "It's an old dream that starts in my childhood. I always wanted to become a physicist." He said, "I knew physics was my true passion by the time I graduated high school, but after the war, my uncle and my mother advised me to take up medicine because it would be a better choice in these turbulent after-war years." Although he excelled at and loved physics, Steiner followed his family's advice, and he became a doctor. And then later on, he became an academic research doctor. So the question would be, the first question I would say is, did he make a mistake? And I don't think he did. I mean, this is part of the, sort of waking up from, maybe a childhood that's kind of saturated with Disney and the idea that you can be anything you want to be, or you should just follow your passions, just full stop. The reality is most of us live in a situation where we have to do things like make ends meet, and the chances are not 100% that whatever it is that you feel like in your heart is your aspiration, and what it is that people around you need you to do in order to contribute to your community around you, they're not always going to match up. And so I think it's 100% reasonable to just, the people around me are saying, I know you like physics, but you need to do something else because we need to be able to make ends meet. Times are hard. I think that's 100% reasonable that he didn't pursue physics. So I think that this idea that maybe implied that everything up to this point he was doing is a waste of time is the wrong way to look at it. So what's interesting is that he had a really good career as a doctor, specifically a haematologist. It says in 1985, Steiner was appointed head of the hematology section of the medical school, a position he held until 1994. When approaching retirement, an associate of his was made chief of hematology at the University of North Carolina, Greenville, and he asked Steiner to join him to establish a research program in hematology, which he directed until 2000, when he retired from medicine and returned to Rhode Island. But Steiner's passion for physics never left him. He says, "Even when I was in medical school, I went at times to lectures by a renowned physicist, Walter Thirring. His lectures always fascinated me. I was captivated by quantum physics and wished I could go into more detail on this." Unfortunately, at that time, Steiner was unable to delve into the mysteries of quantum physics the way he would have liked. "You cannot do medicine halfway," he says. "You really have to dedicate your life to it." So that's interesting, because when I read that, I was captivated by quantum physics and I wished I could go into more detail on this. I thought to myself, well, why didn't you just get a book and study it, in your spare time? But then the next sentence answers it. It's like, well, you really can't do medicine halfway. It has to be your only thing. I don't know if that's true or not, but I know that doctors, and especially academic doctors, tend to work really long hours, so that's probably just the reality of it. For myself, I prefer sort of a lifestyle where I can have a career, a hobby that's stimulating and interesting, and also have a family life. In more demanding careers, you do have to kind of get that middle one out of the way, and you can basically just have, your career and family. And then in the very, very demanding careers, even your family time kind of gets swallowed up by your career. And I think that's worth it for some people, but that's never the lifestyle that I wanted. But this is so cool for him. He says, "But throughout a long career in medicine, he never stopped thinking about physics. And when I retired from medicine and I was approaching age 70, I decided to enter this world." He started taking physics classes at MIT and then eventually transferred to Brown because he didn't really like the commute from Rhode Island to Boston. He enrolled at Brown as a special student in 2000 and began taking undergraduate courses. I love that he started with undergrad courses. This guy, so it actually says he had 2 doctorates. So I think he had his medical doctorate and he had a PhD in biochemistry. So he had 2 doctorate degrees, but he starts at square one. He says, "I introduced myself to the teachers and told them I'm an older student. and they were delighted to have me in class. Many years his junior, Steiner says his fellow student liked him and treated him well. So the article goes on to describe how he got his PhD, but what I want to kind of focus on is towards the end of this is kind of his thoughts, where he is right now. So it says that even with 2 PhDs and an MD and a distinguished career in medicine behind him, Steiner is not prepared to rest on his laurels. He is currently reworking part of his dissertation for publication and plans to continue his theoretical physics work. Quote, "Even though I am old, I would like to continue with physics. And even after writing and publishing this paper, I want to continue with my research. I always trying to keep my brain sharp. Physics certainly helped me to do that." And that's really interesting, and it actually brings to mind a conversation I had with an elderly doctor once about a decade ago. When I was younger, I was actually myself considering going into the medical field, and so I was doing different job shadowings and things like that. And this one doctor I talked to was saying he was switching specialties, and he was actually similar to this guy. I think he was about approaching 80 years old, or maybe he was about 80 years old, and he was switching specialties again. So he was switching from, I don't know, something like hematology to oncology, right? So going from something like, it was pretty different. I don't know what the fields were, but I remember it was quite different. So we'll say he was switching from, blood from being a blood expert to focusing on cancer care. And that's just, when it comes to medicine, that's a very, very big switch. And he told me that his wife had retired, and his motto was that when you stop growing, you die. And so he said he used to make fun of his wife and tell his wife, "Well, you retired, so you're going to die now." Whereas I, on the other hand, apparently am going to live indefinitely because I'm still growing and still learning. Obviously, that's not biologically factual, but there's like a spiritual essence to that where it's true, right? You notice that when people stagnate, they start to degrade. And there's a lack of excitement, and there's a lack of joy, there's a lack of motivating spirit in them. And what's really interesting is that you don't have to be 80 years old for that to happen. And I have met many people, and I know people, and I'm sure that you do too, who are maybe 30 years old, and they feel like life has already passed them by. Oh, I missed my shot. Oh, well, it's too late now. But that is really, this article I think shows that that's not necessary. You don't have to take on that viewpoint. You could be 60 years old and had never really done anything that you were proud of, and you could start to work towards doing something that you would be proud of, and that would bring you joy and would be helpful and beneficial for other people. I had another mentor, still is a mentor of mine, who during his research career, he also was a material scientist like myself. He said that he tried to switch his specialty about every 10 years. Not like completely, like not like a huge change. He would always switch from one specialty to another, where he would be able to bring in some core skill set that would be useful for him, that would be useful to the people he'd be collaborating with. But as far as research goes, he did it because he thought that new perspective made him more valuable to other people, and it made it a lot more fun for him. The last thing you want to do as a creative person, and I do think that science, especially research science, is fundamentally creative in nature. The last thing you want to do as a creative person is to get bored. And I imagine that can hold true for other things. And so this idea of not stagnating, I think, is not just for scientists. I think it's for people who are really in any other kind of field, or who are working from home or engaged in childcare or something like that. I think the idea of having one area in your life that gives you a spark of potential, of possibility, and to sort of seek out that spark and to follow it is going to be something that will bring a lot of life and energy into your life. When I'm talking to somebody new, I always try to find out what that spark is for that person. So for Steiner, it probably would have been theoretical physics. It would be the thing that they could talk about, that they would start to light up about. And even if I didn't have an interest in that, it would be fun to talk to them about that because they have that spark. So if anything, what I'm taking away from this paper is to kind of keep that spark alive. And I do wish for him that he was able to have studied physics a little bit on the side while he was in medicine, but I mean, he had a brilliant career and he did what he had to get by and presumably to get ahead. But I just love what he says about retirement at the end. The article says, when asked what those approaching retirement age should do, Steiner says, "Is up to them. I could not imagine spending my life playing golf all the time. I wanted to do something that keeps my mind active. But it is a matter of whatever you want to do. If you have a dream, follow it. Sometimes that dream may never have been verbalized, it may be buried in the subconscious. It is important not to waste your older days. There is a lot of brain power in older people, and I think it can be of enormous benefit to younger generations. Older people have experience, and many times history repeats itself. As for young people choosing between following a passion and taking a more conventional path in life," Steiner says, "I think young people should follow their dreams whatever they are. They will always regret it if they do not follow their dreams." So that's Manfred Steiner. I don't think I can argue with him. I mean, I was going to say I don't think that he necessarily made the wrong decision in putting off becoming a physicist until later, because sometimes life is just hard and you have to do what you need to do to get by. And post World War II Europe, everything was bombed out. I mean, I think it was reasonable for him to become a doctor. So I don't think that you're a bad person if you don't follow your dream right away. But I do think what I'm taking away from this is the importance of kind of keeping a spark alive and recognizing that just because the story doesn't play out in exactly the way maybe you picture it when you're young, that doesn't mean that you should give up on the things that bring you joy and excitement and make you look forward to the future. Well, anyway, I'd be super curious to know any inspiration or thoughts that you might have derived from hearing about Manfred Steiner's path. And if you have any thoughts, please drop them in the comment section. And I would appreciate it if you would like and subscribe and join me again in the future soon. Bye.